I stood in line at Chipotle, exhaustion tugging at my limbs after a long, grueling day. The only thing keeping me upright was the thought of sinking my teeth into a warm burrito, the familiar comfort I craved. As the line inched forward, I mentally crafted my perfect meal. Brown rice, black beans, chicken, all the toppings. My stomach growled in anticipation. When it was finally my turn, I watched the server assemble the burrito with swift, practiced motions. Layer after layer, the ingredients piled up, their aromas wafting toward me. I was practically salivating by the time I paid and grabbed the burrito, the foil warm in my hand. It felt hefty, just the way I liked it. Promising. I found a quiet corner in the restaurant, eager to savor the moment. Unwrapping the foil felt like unboxing a present. But as the burrito was revealed, a strange unease gnawed at me. Something was off. The smell was right. Cheese, chicken, beans. But my gut told me something was wrong. I leaned in closer, squinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. There, nestled between the cheese and sour cream, something glinted. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. I brushed the sour cream aside, my fingers trembling slightly. A small metallic object peeked out from the layers of food. My mind tried to make sense of it, hoping it was just a trick of the light. But when I picked it up, reality hit me like a sledgehammer. It was a razor blade. For a moment I just stared at it, dumbfounded. Cold metal gleamed under the light, sending a chill down my spine. My mind raced. How did this end up in my burrito? Was this a joke, an accident, or something far worse? I glanced around the restaurant, my heart thudding in my chest. The employees were busy, oblivious to the horror sitting in my hand. I tried to remember every detail of my interaction with the staff. The server had seemed distracted, barely making eye contact. Was that normal? Was there something in his expression I hadn't noticed? My thoughts spiraled. What if this wasn't an accident? What if someone had slipped the blade in on purpose? I stood up abruptly, burrito forgotten. My hands shook as I made my way to the counter. The manager, an older man with thinning hair, looked up as I approached. His face paled when I showed him the blade. "Oh my God," he muttered, eyes wide. I don't know how this happened. This has never happened before." His voice wavered, and I could tell he was as shaken as I was. He offered a refund, a free meal, an apology. But none of it mattered. All I could think about was the razor blade that had nearly been inside me. I left the restaurant in a daze, my appetite completely gone. As I walked to my car, the world seemed sharper, more dangerous. Every sound, every movement felt amplified. The cars in the parking lot, the people passing by. I kept imagining that blade glinting beneath layers of cheese and rice. How easily it could have sliced through my mouth, my throat. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of the blade haunted me, refusing to leave my mind. I replayed every moment in my head, analyzing every detail. Was it truly an accident? Could someone have done this to me deliberately? The next morning I called the restaurant to follow up, hoping for some explanation. But there was none. They had no idea how the blade ended up in my food, no record of anything like it happening before. Weeks passed, but the unease lingered. Every meal felt like a risk, every bite a potential threat. I found myself obsessively checking my food, slicing open sandwiches, peeling back layers of burgers, always searching for something hidden. It was irrational, I knew, but the fear had taken root, and it refused to let go. Then one evening I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address, no name, just my address, scrawled in thick black ink. My heart pounded as I tore it open. Inside was a single slip of paper, 3 words, written in jagged handwriting. "Did you enjoy?" My blood ran cold. I dropped the note, my hands trembling. This wasn't a mistake. It hadn't been a careless accident. Someone had put that razor blade in my burrito on purpose, and now they were taunting me. I spent the next few days looking over my shoulder, feeling exposed and vulnerable. I couldn't shake the paranoia. Everywhere I went, I felt watched. Every meal was a battle against my own anxiety. A few nights later, the phone rang. I hesitated before picking it up, my gut telling me something was wrong. Silence on the other end. And then just as I was about to hang up, a low voice whispered, "Bon appetit." I froze, the blood draining from my face. They knew. They were still watching me. I never ate out again. I'd been working the late shift at Chipotle for a few weeks, and despite the chaos of evening rushes, it was a decent job. The restaurant was always packed with families and friends, the air alive with the sizzle of grilling meats and the chatter of hungry patrons. But one night, an ordinary evening turned into a nightmare that still haunts me. It started subtly. A customer in the corner complained of feeling nauseous. He was clutching his stomach, his face a sickly green. I assumed it was just an upset stomach, the kind you get from eating too much or too quickly. But then another customer, a middle-aged woman, doubled over in her chair, groaning in pain. She looked pale, almost ghostly. I didn't think much of it at first. These things happen. But as the night went on, the situation grew worse. People began falling ill left and right. The din of the restaurant was interrupted by the sounds of moaning and vomiting. It was unsettling. By the end of my shift, there were reports of at least a dozen people having to leave their meals abruptly, clutching their stomachs, their faces contorted in agony. The staff and I were overwhelmed. Trying to clean up and reassure the remaining customers, we offered apologies and free meals, hoping to placate the growing unease. The next day, the restaurant was still buzzing with whispers of the Chipotle flu, as it was now being called. Social media was ablaze with speculation and fear. Parents were keeping their kids home from school. Friends canceled plans, not wanting to risk exposure. I felt a growing knot in my stomach, a gnawing worry that something was terribly wrong. Health inspectors arrived, their faces set in grim lines. They scoured every inch of the restaurant, examining everything from food storage to employee hygiene. The scrutiny was relentless. I saw their frustration as they tore through our kitchen, inspecting every detail with the precision of a detective hunting for clues. It felt like we were living in a nightmare, a sinking dread settling over the once busy restaurant. The days dragged on, each hour stretching into eternity as we awaited answers. And then, finally, the verdict came in. Norovirus, a highly contagious virus that causes severe gastrointestinal distress. It had spread silently through the restaurant, likely carried by an infected employee. The realization was chilling. The virus had turned our haven of casual dining into a cesspool of sickness. The news hit the community hard. People were horrified by how easily the virus had spread. The once welcoming Chipotle, where we'd all come together for a quick bite, now stood as a grim reminder of the dangers lurking in the most unsuspecting places. The restaurant was shut down for thorough cleaning, a process that seemed to drag on forever. When it finally reopened, the atmosphere was different. People came back, but there was a palpable sense of wariness, a cautious return to normalcy. The familiar smells and sounds were there. But so was a lingering sense of dread. I watched as the community tried to rebuild trust, their once unshakable confidence in everyday routines now marred by fear. The outbreak left a scar on the town, a stark lesson in the fragility of our health. and the unseen threats that can disrupt our lives. It served as a haunting reminder that even in our seemingly safe routines, there lurks the possibilities of unseen dangers. As I look back, I can't shake the feeling that the horror of those days has left an indelible mark on us all, a chilling reminder that the next threat might be just around the corner, waiting to strike when we least expect it. I never imagined that working at Chipotle would involve more than just prepping burritos and mopping floors. Yet as I closed up that night, the normalcy of my shift took a turn for the terrifying. The restaurant was empty. The last customer had left, and the cheerful background music had faded into a haunting silence. The smell of grilled onions and citrus marinade lingered in the air, but beneath it, a chill seemed to settle in, making my skin prickle. Rumors had circulated among the staff, talk of disembodied voices, phantom footsteps, and a suffocating sense of being watched. I always dismissed them as exaggerations until that night. I was alone, methodically cleaning the tables and sweeping the floor, when I first noticed the cold. It crept up my spine, a frigid shiver that made me stop in my tracks. The air grew heavy, thick with a palpable dread. Then I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the storage room. My heart raced as I approached the door. Every step felt like a mile. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle, the scratching growing louder, more insistent. Taking a deep breath, I yanked open the door, expecting to find a rat or some malfunctioning pipe. The room was empty. No rats, no pipes. Just the silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. As I turned to leave, an icy gust washed over me. I felt a presence, something cold and menacing, right behind me. I spun around, and that's when I saw it. A shadowy figure standing in the doorway, its eyes glowing an unsettling red in the dim light. I froze, my mind scrambling for logic. It had to be a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination. But as the figure stepped forward, the reality of it gripped me. My instincts screamed at me to run. I screamed too, the sound echoing off the empty walls as I dropped my cleaning supplies and bolted out of the restaurant. Outside, the night air was a bitter relief. I leaned against my car, trying to catch my breath. My phone was dead, and the desolate strip mall felt like a prison. I glanced back at the Chipotle, its dark windows staring at me like soulless eyes. I vowed never to return, haunted by the memory of the shadow and its glowing eyes. Weeks passed, but the fear didn't fade. The restaurant stayed open, but I heard whispers of more strange occurrences. The staff spoke of cold spots, flickering lights, and unsettling shadows. None of them stayed alone after dark. The haunted Chipotle had become a place of whispered legends and lingering dread. Every so often, I drive past the Chipotle, its lights casting long shadows across the parking lot. The memories of that night resurface. The cold hand on my shoulder, the eyes of the shadow burning into my soul. I don't know what waits for those who close up alone, but I do know that whatever it is, it's not something I want to encounter again. The restaurant stands as a ghostly monument to the unknown, a place where the past clings to the present, whispering through the empty aisles long after the lights have gone out. It's a place where the supernatural lingers, and the fear never quite leaves.